Again, we are here at our first blogging bootcamp session. We're going to have 4 of these over the course of the next few weeks. If you're catching this on a recording, the recordings are there for you to watch hour after hour, but I don't know that you want to listen to my voice for that long. So we're going to go here for the next hour. We'll probably finish a little bit early so that we can get a bunch of good questions from you guys if you have them. And again, we are going to talk about blogging from the fundamental perspective of how do I create a blog post that's going to look, professional and presentable so that when somebody lands on my post, it looks like a piece of content that they want to consume on the internet. And next week, and I don't want to start trying to lead you guys to next week already, but next week is really the nuts and bolts of how do we get a piece of content to rank, what kinds of things should we be writing about. But we want to make sure that, when we learn that, we already have kind of the fundamentals in place as far as how do I get my blog post looking good, clean, and presentable. I'll start here on the home page, and a lot of if you guys were to go through and look at some of the featured posts that are on the home page on any given day, a lot of those posts are very clean and presentable and professional looking, and we're looking for those things when we feature posts, but these folks have been around for a while and they've gotten to the point where they know every time I create a piece of content, I'm going to make it professional and presentable, because when somebody lands on our content, we have a very short amount of time to capture their attention span. And again, we just want them to know that this is being presented to them by a professional. So let's get in here and start writing our first blog post. And there's a couple of places from the console that we can do that from. And I'm actually going to bring you in here as my little boy today. We're not going to be logged in as me. We'll be logged in as my son in honor of his first day of school today. He's a kindergartner. He had his first day of school. So I'm going to jump over to his My Home page. And when you guys are logged in, you'll always have that My Home page on the right. I tried right before we jumped on here to upload his picture, but it uploaded sideways. That is a picture of him an hour ago as he got ready to head off to school. I'm a very proud father, as you can tell. But right here, right below your picture on this My Home page is going to be your ability to jump in and write your first blog post. So I'm going to click Write a Blog Post. I'm a big tab browser, so you guys are going to see me bouncing back and forth between different tabs today. There's a couple other places. It's going to bring us to a page that looks like this. If you guys have written your first blog post before, you're no stranger to this page. Some of you guys have probably written multiple blog posts, and hopefully throughout the course of the next 40 minutes, we'll get you a little bit better and cleaner in terms of the presentation of your post. There's a couple other places in here. If you're in the blogs area, this little blogs area right here, right at the top here, you can write a blog post. You can also hop over and check your own blog out, and this is what Kellen's blog looks like. You have an ability right here at the top to create a new blog entry. So those 3 kind of areas where you can jump in and basically get yourself to this page right here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to give your blog a title, and that may not necessarily always be the first thing you do. When we get into the SEO class next week, we're going to realize why this title is very important. But every time you write a blog post, you have to think about who your audience is. And so there's really 2 types of posts that you'll see on ActiveRain. You'll see posts that are geared towards other professionals. So you as a real estate agent write something and you're gearing it towards your peers. And then the other kinds of posts we'll see are you as a professional writing a post geared towards a consumer. And that's really what we'll dive into next week, the types of posts you want to be writing, how you get those things ranking so consumers are actually seeing them. Your title is going to be based on what you want to rank for, especially as it relates to writing content geared towards consumers. If you're writing for your peers, your title could be something catchy so that when people see it around ActiveRain, they want to click on it and engage that post. And again, we'll really handle kind of how we create titles in the SEO class next week. Now, as we actually get in here and start to type our blog out, we're just going to start typing away, right? And you guys, I promise you, do not want to watch me type out everything that I've got here. So I kind of went in and pre-wrote or preloaded some content that we're going to use to kind of optimize and get looking really good. One of the things that, it's not necessarily a mistake that I see a lot of people making, but I see enough of it around the site. One of the things that you want to be real careful with, especially as you're first getting started and you're really excited and you want to get that first blog post out there, the first thing that you should consider is white space. And white space is going to kind of be a theme as we go through the next a little bit of time here, but notice that my post already has some pretty decent white space in it, and that's just based on the fact that I've used kind of standard English, right? You use paragraphs and sentences and these sorts of things. These things will actually help your blog not only be able to be consumed more easily by a consumer, but they'll actually help them rank better in the search engines. They're starting to get so good at looking at a piece of content and understanding sentence structure and paragraph structure. So, not only from a just, geez, does somebody land here and go cross-eyed because it's one huge wall of words? Right? We want to make sure that we have good white space. One of the things that you can do to help you kind of manipulate how much white space you have in there, because you'll notice when I'm at this portion, if I hit the return button, it's going to drop me down and give me that kind of full space in there. If I was to hit it again, it's going to drop down and give me this even larger space, right? So that would be essentially double space. If I hold the shift button and then hit return, it's going to drop me down that half a line. You guys notice the difference between that and that? So that holding the shift button and hitting return will give you the ability to kind of manipulate that white space without so much of it coming in there. I'll show you kind of why that's important, especially when I start to do things like make my subheaders larger so that they really pop off the screen. Okay, so I've got a piece of content in here. The first thing I always encourage you to do if you're writing is just write everything that you want to get down on the screen. Just write it all out. Okay, so once you've written all of that stuff out, then we're going to go back and manipulate it to make it look professional. So the first thing we're doing is just dumping our content onto the page, and so I essentially did that by pasting it in here. Once we've got it dumped on the page, then we need to utilize kind of all of these little dealies that we have up here in order to get it looking nice and clean. So one of the first things, these are icons that are pretty standard across any kind of text editing formats that you've seen. You see these in your Gmail or on Word, right? And these ones are pretty basic, but we've got bold, italics, underline, strike through. I use bold a lot, and you'll see a lot of kind of the people that have been around ActiveRain for a while using bold in a fashion that makes sure to really highlight the things that we want to draw attention to. I learned this from one of my buddies, Brad Anderson, and he had said at one point, I asked him, Brad, why do you use bolding in a fashion like that? And what he told me was, I do it because I realize I have about 6 seconds to capture somebody's attention when they land on my piece of content. I want them, if they're one of those browsers, and we see these people on the internet all the time, right, that are, they're looking for what they're looking for and they want it now. When they land on my piece of content, I want them to be able to take just the bolded components of my content, if they were to just read that, it would give them a really good idea of what I'm talking about in order to draw them into my content a little bit further. So, I'll do it a lot of times. Maybe like I'll highlight some of the first sentences that I write in each of my paragraphs. But I just want them after they're done, or after they land there, just at a real quick scan to be able to get a good idea of everything that I'm going to kind of talk about if they decided to completely dive into my content. So, again, let us highlight this stuff, bold it up, make it really pop off the page so that, again, that just get a really good shot of what I'm talking about as they land there. Italics, underline, right? What do we use italics for? I don't know. Sometimes if we've got a quote in here, maybe we might throw that in italics. And again, I'm just highlighting whatever it is that I want to manipulate. Underline, if you wanted to go out there and underline something, maybe I want to take these subheaders and go ahead and underline them. I could do that. Strike through, you'll see people use this when they're being cute or funny, right? Maybe I wanted to say, there's many great deals on short sales, but I'd say those are all gone or something, right? And I would strike it through and then put in what I really mean. You can also use that if you're going back and maybe editing something that you've written in the past and you want to leave kind of the original content there, but strike it out and make an update or an edit to that. These next 4 little icons that we see here are alignment. Your content starts out aligned to the left. You can center your content up. So if I wanted to take maybe this link that I'm going to put in here and I wanted to center that up, I could go ahead and do that. You can align something to the right. I think I've written like 450 blog posts on ActiveRain. I've never once aligned something to the right, but you have the option in there to do it. This align full, I'll show you how I use that when we get in and we actually throw some images into our post here in a little bit. And I use this align full to make things look nice and clean and clear, but you can get an idea of what that does. Let's say I was to highlight this paragraph. You notice it's a little bit jagged on the right here, but once I go ahead and align it full, it's going to take that and make it the full width of the page and kind of align my content by spacing the words out a little bit. I'm actually going to undo that for right now. We've got the ability to indent or outdent content. So if I had a paragraph that I wanted to kind of set off from everything else, I could come down here, could highlight that, maybe throw it in, indent it a little bit. So again, you'll see this like quotes a lot of times. People will take a big block quote like I have right here and go ahead and indent that. So let me pull this back out to the left. And again, you can see it's really easy for me to just kind of move this stuff around. If I start, I get all my content in there. And again, I encourage you to write everything. Don't try to go through and write it and move the stuff as you're doing it. Just get your complete piece of content in there. And then you can come back and do things like indent and bold and some of these different things that we're going through here. We have an ability to add unordered lists or numbered lists. And so if I go in here and let's say I'm going to start down here. And so when I hit return, you'll notice I'm still indented, so I might want to come in here and outdent, and again, I wouldn't have had to mess with that if I had just written everything before I started, but maybe I wanted to give you 3 reasons to buy a short sale in Wallingford. And you can see if you've been kind of looking at what my post is about, short sales in Wallingford, and we'll use this as an example next week in our SEO class for why I've actually written a post of this nature. But I would just hit enter, and my 3 reasons are what? Great deal, you know, you can instant equity, and you know, the potential for something, I don't know. But you'd have 3 great reasons to buy a short sale, right? And then I'd just come back here, I would highlight all of these, I would come in here, maybe throw them in a numbered list. Now as I continue and hit enter, right, it's going to give me number 4. I just hit enter again, and I'm off typing my next piece of content. Okay. Now the next little things that we see in here are a very important piece of any kind of internet marketing that you're doing, are links. Okay, we do class number 3 will be a whole hour about utilizing links, the proper ways to utilize links in an effort to generate leads, to generate traffic to your own websites, and to also increase the search engine performance of your own websites. And the concepts of linking, we're going to spend a whole hour on that. From a practical perspective of how do we get a link into our piece of content, what we're going to do is we're just going to decide what words we want to create a link out of. And you'll notice now I haven't selected anything at this point, so my links are dead. I can't click on this and insert anything because they don't know where I want to insert at yet. So I'm going to come in here and say, okay, click here if you want to find currently available short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. So I'm going to put a link off of this, and you'll notice now that I've highlighted those words, I now have a chance to actually insert the link. The words that I highlighted become what's called anchor text. Okay, again, we're going to go through and really dive into that in a couple of weeks, but here's how you make a link. You highlight, you're going to click the little chain here, and then you need to know, and it's going to pop this little box up, and you just need to know where am I going to send this to. So if I knew the URL of the page that I wanted to send it to, you know, servingyourtown.com, let's say, I could enter that link in there like that. Most of the time, and especially when we really dive into that link class, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be coming up here, because you're not going to know the link on your website to that exact page, right? You're going to be coming up here and saying, all right, I want to dive into my website and find that page where I'm actually going to give somebody short sales in Wallingford, Seattle. So I would come in here and do, you know, a search on my own website, right? And I'm just going to give them, oh, it looks like my short sale option's been turned off, but I do have that option on the back. So whatever, I would do my search. It's going to give me some kind of a long URL, right? I would never have been able to remember that. So I'm going to come over here and copy it. Then I would jump back into my piece of content. I've said, okay, I want to create a link out of this phrase right here. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to paste it in there. I'm going to set a target. We'll dive into more of what the target is in the SEO class really quickly. If you want them on the page you're sending them to, you open it in the same window. If you want them to come back to your blog, you open it in a new window. So most of the time, if you're sending them to your website, you want them there, you want them looking at properties on your website, you're going to open it in the same window. For my title is going to be a semantic phrase to my anchor text. So in this case, it's short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. So I'm going to do something like Wallingford, Seattle, short sale. So not exactly the same, okay, a little bit different for a title, and we'll talk again more about that in our links class. So insert, boom, I've got a link now in my piece of content. I can't test it from here, okay? I'll be able to test it once we put this thing in a draft mode to kind of be able to take a look at what it looks like. Ooh, the next little one is this green tree. And as you can see, as I roll my cursor over that, that's going to be how we insert or edit an image. So let's take a look. There's a bunch of ways that you can get images into your blog post. I'm going to show you 2 ways that I think are the most effective. And the first way is just to say I'm going to place an image in between 2 paragraphs or 2 lines of text. So in order to do that, I need to get my cursor essentially in the position where I want the image to appear. So I'm going to put my cursor here at the end of this paragraph. I'm going to hit return. And I'm going to say, look, I want to throw my image right in here in between these 2 lines. And so now that my cursor's in the spot I want my image to appear, I'm going to come up here, hit insert or edit image. Okay, on this page, you're going to see 3 different tabs. You never worry about this tab. Again, I've written 450 blog posts. I've never used this advanced tab. You're not missing out on anything if you don't use that. You're going to start here on this general tab. And there's 2 ways you can get an image in here. If your image is hosted somewhere else on the internet and you know the URL of that image, right? So maybe it's hosted on your Flickr account or it's hosted on your website or something like that, and you wanted to pull that image over and just have it appear on ActiveRain via where it's already hosted, you could add the URL right here. So, right, that's some URL of an image on ActiveRain, okay? We see it appear there. If I wanted to actually upload an image from my computer, and that's probably going to be more common as you guys get into blogging about your local areas and you're out there taking pictures as you're driving around your communities, right? You're going to be uploading those things from your computer. So in order to do that, you're going to click this little browse button right here. Boom. It's going to pull it up. I'm going to hit browse. It's going to pull up my desktop. And I was about to lie to you guys and say that I always name my images exactly what I want them so I can easily pull them up later. That's not true. In this case, I did do that for you guys. If you're anything like me, like your images are named all these random things and you can never find them, but hopefully you're not like me. All right, so I'm going to hit open, right? It's going to get it in here. Now I got to go ahead and hit upload, and that's going to upload this picture for me and give me a little preview of what I'm seeing here. Image description and title, I'll dive into this a little bit more in the SEO class, but essentially the image description becomes what the search engines identify that as being a picture of. So I might call this a Wallingford, Seattle house, right? So if somebody was to go to Google Images and they were looking for pictures of a house in Wallingford, there's the potential that my image is going to show up in Google Images based on the image description that I give it. The title will become a part of the keywords that are on the page, and it'll also be what somebody would see if they were to hover their cursor over my picture once I post the blog. So I'm going to call this a Wallingford, Seattle home or something. And again, that's what they would see if they hover their cursor over, and that also becomes a part of the keywords on the page, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our SEO class. So I've got that in there. Now, the appearance tab is the next one that we want to take a look at. Here's the deal with the appearance tab. If we're putting the picture in between 2 paragraphs like we've done here, we don't have to worry about this alignment, okay? We're just going to leave it not set, and it's going to drop it kind of in there where we've placed our cursor at. Now we have a chance to manipulate the dimensions here. We can also manipulate the dimensions once we actually place the image in the blog post itself. Vertical and horizontal space, I've already got my spacing in here because I hit the return button and I had that one good line of space. The next way I show you how to insert an image, these are going to be ultra important. And so we'll come back to these here in just a minute. And then I actually have a chance to put a border around my image. And it's a, whatever number I put in here, let's say I put 5, that's going to give me a 5-pixel border. Now you'll notice as I typed in 5 here, it gave me a style down here. If I wanted to change this, I could actually come in here and manipulate like the color that was going to appear around my image for the border. So I'm going to say solid blue. I'm going to come in here and hit insert, and boom, that's going to insert that image in there. And again, it went in between those two lines. Now maybe I said, you know what, that just looks a little bit crowded there. I want to get a little bit more white space. I could come up here and hit return, right? I could hit shift return to give me that half line of space in there. Come down here and give myself a little bit of white space on the other end with another half, or shift return to space it up a little bit. And once I'm in here, I told you if you click on the image, I'm actually going to be able to manipulate the size from here. So I can come in here and say, let me get this a little bit smaller maybe. Maybe I want to make it 400 pixels wide. Now, when I've got this active, there's a couple of other things I can do from here. I could come in here and center this image up. So boom, get it nice and centered in there. I could come in here and actually create a link out of this image. And in our links class, we'll talk about some kind of ways that you can create calls to action in your blog posts that are image-based, where we would actually come in here and say, hey, I want to create a link out of this image and have it going back to my website. Boom. So now we've got our photo in here, and when we actually post it, it will be a live link that we can use. Okay, so there's one way. Let's just go down here real quick, and let's save this post as a draft. So I need to give it a title, short sale. Let's call it short sale homes in Wallingford, Seattle. Okay, it's not going to allow me to save the post without giving it a title. So I'm going to come down here. I'm not going to do anything else right now. I'm going to leave it as a draft, and I'm going to hit post blog entry. Now I do this because I want to get a good look at what it looks like when it's actually landing on the blog. Okay, so I come in here. I see the post right now. Okay, it's got my image in here. It's not the best example at this point, but we're going to come back here. Now at the top, we can still come back and edit this. When we made it a draft, nobody else is going to see this piece of content except for us. Even though it'll be up in your blog when you're logged in and you're looking at your blog, you're the only one that sees that. So you can always use that draft. Maybe you have an idea. I know a lot of our members will just go in and create draft posts as they have ideas. They'll give it a title and maybe jot down a few sentences with their ideas. That's a good way to kind of start to build a library of things that you want to write about. From your My Home page, then, I'm going to click My Home here. I've got all these options on the left-hand side. One of those is View Drafts, and so I could come back in here and click View Drafts later to kind of get in there, and I've got an hour that I'm going to write a couple of blog posts, and I've got some of those drafts saved in there from some of the previous ideas that I might have had. Okay, so there's one way we can get an image in there. Now, I'm going to get this image out of here, and I'm actually going to show you the way that I add images in almost every instance. And I do this because for years and years, when you read a newspaper or you pick up a magazine, or even now today when you go online to Fox News or CNN.com or ESPN, the way that they utilize their images is they're generally going to have the text wrap around the image, and you'll generally see an image kind of leading off near the top of that piece of content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my cursor all the way up here at the very top, and when we're wrapping text around a piece of content, when we're wrapping text around an image, wherever my cursor is height-wise, that's going to kind of be where my image ends up, where the top of my image ends up. So let's say I wanted to just right up here at the very top, I wanted to come in here and insert an image. Okay, so I'm going to have it at the top. I'm going to come in here. Again, I'm going to browse. I'm going to pull up Wallingford. My Wallingford house, right? I'm going to hit upload photo. I'm going to always give it an image description and a title. I'm going to flip over here to appearance. Now here's where our alignment comes into play. As I kind of select some of these different options, you'll see how the text interacts with the image on the right there. I'm going to show you either left or right, and I generally use right. And the reason I do that, there's studies have been done on where people are looking on a page when they land on that page, and they're generally looking in this top left-hand corner at first, and then their eyes will track across to the right, and an image will help kind of pull their eyes across to the right and get them in there and reading that content. And it's like a subconscious thing, you don't even realize you're doing it, but if you have a nice good image up there on the right hand side of that content, you're going to be able to kind of get them to dive in a little bit better. Now, this is one thing. A blog post is about 600 pixels wide. So if I have a 500 pixel wide, and the first dimension here is width, if I have a 500 pixel wide picture and I'm trying to wrap text around it, that's only going to leave a small little column over here on the left for my text to be in. So whenever I'm wrapping text, I generally don't get much bigger than about 350 pixels wide. And when I type my pixels in there and hit tab, it's going to automatically resize that second dimension for me. And it does that because I have this box checked here that says constrain the proportions. Now, again, I said when we're wrapping text, these vertical and horizontal space is going to be super important. I will generally use 20 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to type a 20 in there. I'm going to hit tab. Watch what happened. You see that? It created white space above and below my image. I'm going to do another 20 here for my horizontal space. That's going to create white space on the left and the right of my image. Now, I don't have to give it a border. In this case, I'm not going to give it a border. Okay, I'm just going to hit insert. Again, my alignment's to the right. I've kind of fixed my dimensions, but I'll be able to play with that. And I've given it that good vertical and horizontal space. And what that will do, see this white space in here? Had I not done that, what would happen is the words would actually run right up to the image. It would be crammed in there. There would be no white space, and it looks horrible. So if you're going to utilize this text wrapping around your images, which I would actually highly encourage you to do, it's one of the better formats. And again, the reason I do it is because people way smarter than me have been doing this for years in print, in print or now as we move to more people consuming content online. This is the kind of flavor of what you'll see for images where the text is wrapping around the image. Again, this white space that's created in here is based on the fact that I gave it that horizontal and vertical spacing. Okay, so I've got my image in here. It's looking pretty good up here near the top. I'm going to come in here now. I'm going to take all this wording that I had here on the edge. I'm going to take that wording, and I'm going to align it full. I'm just going to give it that nice, clean feel in there. I could come in here and align this full. I'm actually not sure what's going to happen because we had that centered align full. Ooh, it stayed good, or we had it indented. So I've got that nice align full that gives me that nice, clean edge around my image, and now you can really see that 20 pixels of white space in there. So I've got a piece of content now that is pretty good. Here's what I would say about images. If you're going to place images in your posts, and again, I'd highly encourage you to have images in almost every one of your posts, I would say that you want to be careful with not getting too many images in there and kind of overwhelming the person who's landing on the page. If you're doing like a listing or something, it makes sense to have a number of images in there. I would probably do that. Like, let's say we're doing a listing, right? I'm going to have a paragraph about how awesome the kitchen is. After that, I'm going to have an image in there of the kitchen. I'm going to have a paragraph of how awesome the living room is. I'm going to have an image in there of the living room. Okay? Don't try to jam too many pictures in there, because again, if you look at the traditional print media, you're going to see that they try to get one picture to kind of drive home the meaning, because it's really more about the content on the page than it is the picture. But again, sometimes we've got listings and pictures are important, but you want to get them in there in a fashion that doesn't kind of overwhelm the person as they land on your piece of content. All right, I'm good to go here now. Let's go ahead and throw it up in draft again. It'll get us a look at what it looks like when it actually lands on our blog, and we can see now that we've got a piece of content in here that's starting to come together a little bit. So let's go back in here and hit edit again, and I'm going to show you guys what this little HTML tab does. And this is a little bit advanced, so if HTML, if you don't know what that means, you might tune out for the next little bit, but essentially I'm going to show you how to get a video into your content or anything that utilizes HTML. So what I'm going to do, because when I flip over to HTML, it's going to be really hard to determine where I want to place my content, because there's going to be all this crazy code in there. So what I will do is I will go in here and do something like put the word video. And I know now when I flip to my HTML that is going to be in there for me to replace with my piece of code. okay? So I've saved it. I come in here. We see the word video in here. When I go in and edit and I flip to HTML, before I ever flip to HTML, I want to save my post as a draft, okay? Because you'll notice it says right here, hey, these aren't linked. So if you did something in the HTML view and then you're going to switch to WYSIWYG or vice versa, you're going to lose whatever you were doing before you switched, unless you saved it. So that's why I went in there and saved it as a draft, so that little video cue was in there for me. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm over in HTML, and you can see if I didn't know exactly where I wanted to place that, right, I got my word video in here. If I didn't know exactly where I wanted to place that video, it might be a little challenging to find it in here with all this crazy HTML from our pictures and our links and all of that stuff. So I've got it in here. Now I just need to go off and get the piece of code that I wanted. So I'm going to jump over to YouTube, let's say. Maybe we'll go to the ActiveRain channel. Ooh, ActiveRain real estate. Ooh, that's embarrassing. I don't know our ActiveRain. All right, we're going to my channel. Ha-ha. All right, I know I'm here on YouTube. I know I got some videos. Let's take a video of my little boy here somewhere. You know, he's a favorite of mine. How about when he took center court with Squatch at the Sonics? We don't have the Sonics anymore, which is unfortunate, but when we did, you might have saw my son in there at half court dancing with the mascot. So I'm going to get in here. I'm going to say share, right? I'm going to grab this embed code, this piece of HTML code right here that I'm going to use. And now I want to make sure it's not too large. So I know that 600 is about that max width. So I'm going to go with the 560 by 315. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to jump back in here, right? Now I'm back on my post. I'm in the HTML section. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to replace the word video with that little piece of code that I just grabbed from YouTube. You know, there's other video hosting sites. There's things like Zillow that have widgets, and there's, you know, anywhere that you have a piece of HTML code like that, you can enter it in here using this HTML side of the entry field. Now, this is a little bit trickier, okay? I want to center mine up, and I need to know a little bit of basic HTML to center that thing, so I'm going to add a center tag in here. Right? This is all stuff we can learn by Googling, right? I never knew HTML until I started trying to figure out how to do this. So I'm going to center that thing up in there. I think it's good to go now. I'm going to come in here and hit post blog entry. Boom. And what do you know? I got a video in there. Ooh, it looks like I grabbed the wrong video, but you get the idea, okay? We see my video in here. You can do things like add Google Maps. There's a bunch of stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the SEO class from the perspective of adding kind of content that keeps people on your page. And video is a great way to get people staying on your page longer, which will kind of send signals back to the search engine that, hey, you know, somebody typed something in the search engine, you gave them my result, and they liked it, and they stayed on the page for a little bit longer. Okay? So now we've got a piece of content that's kind of coming together here. One other thing I like to do, and I have these subheaders in here, right? The steps to buying a short sale in Wallingford, short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. I'm going to come back in here and edit this. I'm going to stay in this HTML, and I'm going to make my subheaders a little bit larger, and so I need to find my subheader first of all, okay? So it can get a little bit challenging in here, but I know that this is my subheader right here, short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an H2 header tag to this. So H2, I'm going to come over here and end it with, and again, if you guys are starting to go cross-eyed on me and like, huh? You'll see the results of this here in a second, but it's just less than sign, H2 greater than sign. Okay, at the end of my words here, it's going to be less than sign / H2 greater than sign. That little command right there. Okay, now I need to come down. I need to find that second subheader, and I know that it was right after my video. Okay, there's my video. Here's my second subheader. Boom. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to give it one of those. I'm going to come down here and hit post blog entry. And away we go with hopefully what will be some nice, good subheaders in our piece of content to really draw attention to whatever it is that we're talking about in that section of the post. Okay? Let's come back here one last time and edit. Let's flip us over to WYSIWYG. We haven't made any changes, so we should be good there. Now, you'll notice there's a little giddy up here. It makes this thing a little bit small, so I'm just going to come back down real quick. I'm going to hit post. I'm going to get back in there and edit it. Now I'm going to have a full screen look at what my content looks like. And then if I want to make adjustments, like right in here, maybe I want to give it some better white spacing, I hit Shift Return. I want to give it some better white spacing here, I'll hit Shift Return. Okay, and I'm just really getting it clean and good so that when somebody lands on it, again, it's a piece of content that they're wanting to jump in and consume. Okay, let's talk real quick about these little options that we have down here. Tags. Tags are basically just to kind of give somebody who's reading a piece of your content an easy path to find other content of a similar nature. So in this case, you know, I'm talking about short sales, so I might do short sales as a tag. I might do Wallingford, Seattle as a tag. I might do, you know, homes for sale as a tag. Okay, my tags are separated by commas. I'm never going to do more than about 3 to 5 tags because a tag is telling the person what this is about and attempting to lead them to other content of a similar nature. So the next time I write about short sales in Ravenna, which is another neighborhood of Seattle, I'm going to have short sales as a tag. I'm going to have Ravenna, Seattle, and then I may have homes for sale. But it's going to give them a chance where if they read my post about short sales in Wallingford, right, and they came down and hit the short sales tag, they'd see all the other posts I'd ever written about short sales. My visibility, we'll come back to this in a minute, okay? We've got all these other options in here now. So hyperlocal pages. If I want to post to a hyperlocal page, and what a hyperlocal page is when we come up here at the top of ActiveRain, maybe from our home page, you'll see that we've got these states drop downs. Let's get into Washington. Okay, I'm going to get us into the city of Seattle. And you'll notice that when we get into the city of Seattle, there's content on this page. And this content is from a bunch of the different members of ActiveRain who, when they posted their blogs, told us that this content is about a specific area. So in that case, they're telling us that it's about Washington, it's about King County, and it's about the city of Seattle. And by doing this, when I post it, my piece of content is going to appear on the Seattle page. It's going to land here first, okay? The content that lands up here is based on kind of an algorithm that we run that looks at popular posts. Are they getting comments on them? Are they getting views? Are they getting clicks? And we kind of put some stuff up here that you know, might be a little bit more appealing to somebody that was interested in some information about Seattle. Now we can also get down all the way to a community level. And my particular post was about the Wallingford area of Seattle. And so if we went in here and checked out Wallingford, we're going to see that there's a bunch of content in here from members of ActiveRain that's about the Wallingford area of Seattle. Okay, we can get our content onto this Wallingford page as well, and we would just do that by selecting our neighborhood. We'd come right down here to Wallingford. We'd say, hey, we want to add this to Wallingford. If it's a listing, go ahead and check the post as a listing. Okay. Channels would be the next thing. Our channels from the top of any page on ActiveRain, or most pages anyway, you're going to see these different channels in here. And we're really looking for you to pick kind of one channel that it's most appropriate for. So in this case, you know, this is going to be for consumers, and maybe it's about home buying, and it's about, you know, homes for sale or foreclosures and short sales. So there we go. We're going to get in the topic foreclosures and short sales, and all it's going to do is when somebody was to come into the home buying channel here, they're going to find our piece of content under the foreclosures and short sales topic, right? So we're going to see foreclosures and short sales in here, and we would be able to have our content showing up on that page. My groups, we're going to encourage you at the end here, we're going to get you guys pointed towards the boot camp group. We're going to encourage you to post some of your early posts in there. We have, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 groups on ActiveRain for anything and everything that you could ever think of, literally, like knitting or, you know, football fans or, you know, whatever. There's a whole bunch of groups in there. You can post any one of your blog posts in up to 5 groups. Okay, so you'll notice Kellen's a member of the Short Sale Specialists group, so he can add his post to that group. So we come down here to categories. Again, this is one of these things where we just kind of got to pick the best option in here, and there's some ways for people to sort content around the site based on how we kind of line it out for what category it's a part of. So if you're writing something geared towards your peers, it's going to be for real estate professionals. If you're writing something that's geared towards consumers, it's going to be for consumers. And again, you're just going to kind of pick the best option here. So maybe this is general information, or maybe it's about a region. My outside blog, we're going to give you guys after next week's class. We're not going to do the outside blog class live during this bootcamp session. We have a recording of outside blogs. If you guys are a Rainmaker on ActiveRain, you have an outside blog. I have a whole, I don't know, it's about 40 minutes, I think, where I take you and I walk you through the setup of your outside blog. What the heck is an outside blog? It's essentially your ability to have your content on its own domain. So instead of your blog being at activerain.com/blogsview/ your blog could be at kellenstewart.com, and you can actually kick content out and have your own kind of space on the web powered by ActiveRain. These last couple options down here, allow others to reblog this post. Reblogging is a thing that we have where you can actually allow other people to share your content. And I would encourage you to always kind of give people the option to do this, because if somebody finds the content that you've written compelling enough to share, you want to allow them to do that. And it's done in a fashion where you can, you get credit for it, you show up as the author, but it allows people to share content. So, maybe you have a loan officer on ActiveRain that you really like and you'd like to share content with them or take a piece of their content. This is what reblogging is about. I think we'll talk about reblogging a little bit later as well in the series. This is not my content, but I have permission to repost it. This might be, okay, listen up for this one, everybody. Okay, this is not my content, but I have permission to repost it. Never, ever, 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 ever post a piece of content that you took off of the internet that you don't have permission to post. It's called plagiarism. It's a copyright violation, and it is illegal. And it can and will lead to legal action, right? I mean, people can come after you for damages, and we've had ActiveRain members who have been, who've taken a piece of content from cnnmoney.com and they've just posted it in their blog, and even though they left the author's name in there, right, you don't want to do that. If you were to go up to the ActiveRain, the top here, and search for copyright, we've got a whole section in our community guidelines. Let's see, our community guidelines are at the bottom of every page. Our guidelines, we have a whole section in our guidelines about plagiarism, right? Respect copyright. So if you're unsure of what is okay to do and what is not, get in here and read this. But I mean, basically, you want to be creating content in your blog that you created, right? You don't want to be ripping content off from somewhere else. But let's say that your title rep walked into your office and he said, hey, man, I got this great article about Alt-A title insurance policies, and feel free to share it on your blog or on your website. That's fine. You could do that because you've got permission from Stewart Title, right? You just want to make sure you check this box. And then you have the ability to control your blog, right? You can delete a blog at any time. You can also disable comments on your posts. And this is kind of one of those things that's probably less than 1% of the posts out there have the comments disabled. What would be a practical application of this? Maybe you're taking a listing. The nice seller says, man, you know what? The reason I hired you is because you have such an awesome blog, and I know it gets a ton of engagement and it ranks well in the search engines, but I'll be darned if I don't have a real jerk for a neighbor, and I know that when you blog about it, he's going to go on there and just try to trash my house, and because he doesn't want me to sell it. And right, I mean, you could disable comments on your posts. All right, so once I've kind of taken care of all of those little deals, the last thing I'm going to want to do is come in here and set my visibility to public. Now, if you are not a Rainmaker on ActiveRain, you will not have the ability to set your content to public. You will be restricted to members only and being able to post content to your peers and interact in the community in that fashion. Our Rainmaker members have the ability to post content to the public, right? And once we do that, once we set the visibility at public and we come down here and hit post blog entry, I'm going to do this real quick. Okay, it's going to again say, look, hey, make sure you don't have anything in here that's copyright. Okay, ActiveRain's not going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble. Okay, when we get notified, we're protected by what's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. We get to take it down. You are not protected by that. You posted it. Okay, so again, we just make sure that you're not posting anything that you don't have permission to post. You're going to hit OK. And now I actually have a live piece of content here. This is a live blog post. You'll notice up here at the top, it's just got the title. Had I made this post members only, we would have seen in black right here after the title, it would have said members only. Had I made this post a draft, we would see in black here that it's a draft. But now that this piece of content is public, It's able to be indexed by the search engine. It's going to be available to the 2.5 million visitors coming to ActiveRain every month. And it's going to be out there. Okay? It might be 5 minutes. It might be 24 hours. But that piece of content is going to get picked up by the search engine. Now, in next week's class, and we're getting towards the end here, in next week's class, we are going to take a look at how we write a piece of content to get it to rank in the search engines, and what the heck should we be writing about. And I'm going to give you guys some really good ideas of kind of the things that you can and should be writing about, especially if you're getting started. Maybe not even if you're getting started, but these are just kind of some fundamentals, things that we see our members writing about. We see thousands of these types of posts a month that are really helping people's businesses. And again, we're going to dive deep into that. We're going to dive deep into kind of what are the tenets of good search engine optimization, and we will make sure after next week, right? This week we know how to now create a piece of content that looks good, it looks clean, it's presentable to somebody that's landing on the page. Next week we're going to talk about how we get them landing on our content, what we write about to engage them, what we write about to get ranking in the search engines, and by that point you're going to be dangerous, I think. Okay, so let's get in here and take some questions. And again, thank you guys for joining me. We've got about 10 minutes left in our scheduled hour. I will stay here and answer as many questions as you guys have. So I hope you picked up a few little tips. I can't see all the names on here. There's a bunch of you guys in here. So if you if you've been around ActiveRain for a while, this might have been a little bit of a review for you. Hopefully you picked up a few good things to kind of make that piece of content clean and clear and crisp, so that when somebody lands there, because again, we have a very limited amount of time to capture their attention and to get them diving into our content and consuming it, right? With the ultimate goal of wowing them to believe, geez, this guy really is an expert on short sales in Wallingford, Seattle. Okay. Oh, awesome question from Michelle. She just served it up for me, and this is actually a part of your guys' action items. And right now, and a couple of you guys are dropping off the line here, I'm going to have Christy in your